Okay. And so after the DVT that I had in 2016, I went on Xarelto. I don't know if you've heard of Xarelto. It's
Yeah.
one of the blood thinners. So I was taking that for several years, and I um, technically was still on Xarelto when I had the stroke. So I was like, how did that happen in the first place? Like, how did I even get a clot while on the blood thinners?
Yeah.
Could it be that the blood thinners caused it?
I don't know.
Because an interesting thing, at least for me, was doctors were always hesitant to put me on blood thinners because they thought that by being on them, that could like make the AVM worse or like induce a stroke to
Hmm.
some extent. So I was never allowed to be on a blood thinner medication. That's just why I was wondering.
Yeah.
You didn't have an AVM though, did you?
I did, yes. I had
Oh,
an
you did.
AVM in my right occipital lobe. And
Okay. I
they
guess that makes sense then why they wouldn't want you, or they thought it could cause a stroke for you because the AVM, or maybe they were worried about like the hemorrhagic one with the
Yeah.
bleed
and I
and blood
did have
thinners would.
hemorrhagic stroke.
So I guess that
And
makes sense for a hemorrhagic one since that's a bleed and the blood thinners could have a bleed as a side effect.
that's how they
Um,
explained it to me. That's why they couldn't put my stent in, was because I already had too much blood in my brain, and they said they couldn't give me more blood thinners because how that would break up in your brain would be like, it would be worse or
mhm.
something. I
Yeah. You know how they have like the clot buster thing that people can get for the strokes for the ischemic ones? So we're not technically sure how long I had between the stroke starting and actually getting treated because mine started, I guess, when I was in my sleep still.
Oh, okay. And you woke
And so I was supposed to be getting up and getting ready for school. I was in a doctorate program for physical therapy at the time in my first year of my program. And I was supposed to be getting up for a big test, and my mom, I guess her motherly instincts went off, and she was like, I don't know. Or she's like, I think she slept through her alarm. I should go wake her up. So she came in to check on me to wake me up and make sure I wasn't still sleeping when I had a big test. And then I was on the floor in my room when she found me. And she was asking if I could get up. And I guess I must have like gotten or tried to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. And then when my leg didn't support me, that's probably how I just ended up on the ground. But I remember thinking that I was on my bed, and I was not. um, so yeah, and then she called all the paramedics, of course, and I remember she was telling me she was telling them that it was a stroke, or that she was pretty confident it was a stroke. So I was, um, um, so yeah, I was in the hospital for like 17 days. Um, and I don't know if you guys had like a lot of brain swelling after or not.
I did, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I did.
yeah, so did I. So I guess for the brain swelling, that kind of led to two things for me. So um I was in a medically induced coma for about a week or so because they were saying that I guess they didn't want me to freak out once I kind of realized what was going on. And they said if I was really stressed, then it wouldn't really allow the swelling to go down.
Make
So they figured that if I was in the medically induced coma, then I wouldn't freak out so much and it would give my brain kind of the chance to relax and stop swelling so much. So
Wow. How many days were you in a medically induced? That's
I think it was about a week. And then the other thing they did is they did a craniectomy. Um, I guess, well, two things. They said that because of the swelling in my brain, it was like pushing up against my skull and getting too much pressure on my brain. So they were saying, oh, well, if we do the craniectomy, then when we take the piece of the skull out, then it'll have more room for the swelling. And then, so yeah, So they did that. They did that, I think that was 3 days after the stroke. So it was on leap year.
Oh, right, because it was this year.
Yeah.
Jeez,
And
it was, sorry, February.
sorry, what was that?
What day was your stroke? You said it was in February?
It was February 26th.
26th.
Mm-hmm.
You're still so fresh out. It's so insane that this is just this year. Like, I cannot wait to see the progress. Like, I can't wait to do like an interview with you like next year. Like, it's gonna be wild.
That's gonna be absolutely wild. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, you're good. So yeah, it was weird too with the COVID situation going on, because it was a very different way of kind of seeing how everything unfolded, because I wasn't out and seeing everyone in all their masks everywhere, all in the stores, and everyone hoarding all the toilet paper and that kind of stuff. So for me, it was more of seeing, or my family was talking about how they were testing people coming into the hospital, and they were saying how when they went to like the cafeteria in the hospital, they they couldn't, like, they had closed the salad bar at one point because they didn't want people reaching in under to grab all the stuff. Or
I never thought about, but that makes sense.
yeah, so it was like little things like that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I had no idea what to really picture. I was just kind of imagining what everything looked like out on the outside.
It's interesting, and I'd be interested to hear like your perspective on having had a stroke like right basically in the beginning of the pandemic, like right when all this started. Like what's it been like going through rehab and therapy like during COVID?
I guess the main tricky part with that is when I was in inpatient. So I was in outpatient or the hospital for 17 days, and then I went to an inpatient center, and I was there for 49 days. So I was there for a pretty good amount of time. And when I first got there, they were still allowing visitors, but shortly after is when they kind of set the no visitation rules.
Right.
So
That had to have been hard.
that was not ideal, yeah.
So then I guess your family wasn't able to come visit you.
The one loophole that we figured out was they were doing family trainings.
Uh-huh.
And so my family would switch off. My mom, dad, and brother would switch off coming in for family trainings, and they would teach them how to do like my stretches or how to do like the transfer into the car and stuff like that. And so that was their way of kind of getting to come visit for a little while.
That's nice. I'm glad. Do you feel like they maybe made you leave the hospital? Because I was like, 17 days? You were only in there for 17 days? I mean, I know they kept saying they don't like to keep you in the hospital, but do you feel like because of COVID, they were probably like a little bit more like, we need the hospital?
Maybe. And then I left inpatient on May 1st, and I came home, and I've been home since then with my parents. And I'm doing outpatient still. The only tricky thing with COVID and outpatient is a lot of people were furloughed initially.
Right.
And so that was kind of interesting. And the PT that I was initially supposed to see in outpatient was furloughed initially, and then she came back and we found out she was only working with the pediatric patients, and I was like, well, that doesn't work for me. I don't really fit in that age category.
So are you doing therapy now?
What was that?
Are you doing therapy now still?
Yeah, I'm still doing PT, OT, and speech.
And speech?
You
got it all going on.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, it was the furloughs, and then some people were working like every other week, or some were working a couple days a week. And so I've kind of shuffled through like 4 different PTs probably in outpatient, which is like kind of nice because you get different perspectives and ideas on things. But then there's the whole side of like having to re-explain a bunch of stuff whenever you start over with the next person.
That gets so frustrating, like seeing new doctors or new therapists. Like, now I have to explain all my extensive medical history all over again to someone new.
Yeah.
Not the best. But I guess
Or
the more
they
you practice it, the better you can get at telling it quickly and effectively.
Mm-hmm.
that is true.
True.
And
Yeah.
do you notice, like, are you having more like online appointments? Like, I'm sure, do you still have like checkups or anything like that?
I have some online calls. Yeah, like I had one with my neurologist recently and a cardiologist, and those are both over the phone. It's really strange having doctor's appointments over the phone.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting time we live in.
I was talking to someone who was saying that they did some of their or some of their PT like over like Zoom or like video calls and stuff, and I was like, that's interesting.
It is. So I'll be honest, like I actually do some telehealth therapy, like because I use the Modus Nova hand device,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
I do teletherapy appointments too with a therapist, and like I'll do exercises with him, and it's weird, like doing it over the camera. Like I'll be trying to pick up a cup of water or something, and like
Yeah.
he's watching me over a camera, but like it's actually not as bad as you would think. Like
That's good.
it's, I mean, given the situation, I mean, it's obviously not ideal, but
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's easier once you're kind of further along too, because like for example, they were trying to do an inpatient. They were trying to get me on like my hands and knees, and there was always two people helping me with that every time. That's a lot. I was like, dang, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Honestly, getting down up from the floor is so challenging, but it's a great exercise to do.
Hmm. Did you guys have trouble with your sitting balance initially?
Initially, yes, with
Yeah, so did I.
Your balance, and then that's what I didn't know how much of it. I'm like, well, we have how many different factors going on? The fact that I have all this built up spinal cord fluid in my head, so my vertigo's messed up. Like I couldn't really see out of this eye, so it was like, I mean, of course I'm like
so much going
dizzy and like all over the place.
Hmm.
That took
Yeah.
like a year to go away. So you're still like, I look back, I found my old journal and like, oh my gosh, you're still so like
very, very fresh.